What's up guys, FluxTech here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a long overdue tutorial because I've had so many people requesting for it. It's just a big task to go over these kind of modeling projects. So without further ado, I'm going to be showing you how to make the empty streets render that I did about 2 years ago. Now, we're not going to be making this exact scene because I lost a bunch of the materials that I used. Not that I really used that many, but we're going to go over a way to get similar results. And first off, I'd just like to say that I am going to be selling the assets for this project on my website. I'll add them today before I post this video, and I'll show you what you're going to get here. So, and this is if you don't want to model and you just want to mess with the things that I've created. So let's see. Octane, Live Viewer. Now, once again, these textures are really basic. They're nothing crazy. You guys can modify them and edit them however you want if you have things that you like better. So just to show you what we're looking at. So in the asset pack, you're going to get these 7 buildings, and that's going to include everything here. So the windows, the buildings themselves, the cloth, everything in this. There's 7 different types of buildings. And this is where I really achieved all of those goals in the empty streets render. Is by having a different variety and cloning them, you have a lot more interesting details to look at without being extremely repetitive if I were to just use 1 or 2 of these buildings. So also included, you're going to get the bike that I've modeled. My models are nothing crazy. They're just things that I make quickly on the fly whenever I'm looking for something to be in my scene. I prefer to make things myself rather than download other ones, but that's just me. Typically because models that I want are expensive and I can get these just how I want them by doing it myself. So also you're gonna get these neon signs. And if you followed my Illustrator to Cinema 4D tutorial, you will know how to make these already. But if you want it, these will be included in the pack, the same ones that I used. And I'm also going to be using, giving away the Flux Edge one. Now, if you use this in your own render and tag me on Instagram, I will send you like a 25% off coupon on the on my store. I only have the one thing on there right now, but with this asset pack, it's going to be 2 things. So if you want to buy one of my objects or models or packs, you can use this in your own render for free, and I'll send you a 25% off coupon. Just make sure that you tag me in whatever you post. Also included is going to be the little trash bin. So I had a few of these in the scene, and I did modify the texture a little so it looks slightly better. But there's one here, there are a couple back here in this scene. And then last but not least, you'll get the street lights in the asset pack. Now this asset pack's only going to be $15, so it's not going to be extremely outrageous, but it did take time for me to create, and I did have to go in and update all these textures. And all of this is adjustable. You can change the light brightness just by going into the missions, and you'll learn the missions from my last tutorial that I posted yesterday. And you can turn these down or turn them up. So there's that. So now that you know about that, let's get into the tutorial and I'll show you how to make things. So firstly, we are just going to start off with a cube. Okay, let me put this here. Just want this lower. We're not going to really need Octane too much for this. So, oops. Whatever. Okay, so first off, we're going to make a cube. And you're going to want to make sure that you have your shading lines on. So you should open it in its default like that. And you want your shading lines on. Then you're going to want to go into your cube, get the general shape of whatever you're working on. I'm going to put a floor here. Oops. And bring my cube up. Or was it? No. Just a little so I can see it better. Okay. So click this so we can move the floor. And this is going to be our first building. actually, screw the floor. So we're going to be trying to create one of these buildings, and it's pretty simple. It's just basic polygons that we're editing. So to make one, I'm going to go ahead and get this to the right size. I'm going to hit C on my keyboard to make this object editable, and now I can click on the sides. So you could also adjust how many polygons there are to begin with in the cube form before it's editable, but I'm not going to do that because we wanted the least amount of polygons possible so it doesn't bog down our render. My empty streets render was also very taxing on my computer, so it wasn't fun to try and go back into that. But we're going to start off with this one side. I'm going to go ahead and hit subdivide. Actually, I'm going to hit extrude inner, and then I'm going to drag it down a little bit so that we're going to get this kind of frame around the building itself. Then next, I'm going to click off, right click, extrude, hold control, and drag left. Right will bring it out, left will bring it in with your mouse. We're just going to bring this in a little bit to get that kind of frame. And then we're going to get off our extrusion tool, right click that polygon again, and hit subdivide. So now we're going to have this quad of 4 polygons. And this is where you're going to do more editing. So I'm going to select these, right click, make sure, well, first go to extrude inner. Make sure preserve groups is checked, and thank you to all of those guys who pointed that out to me. And you're just going to drag this in again. You're going to right click again, go to extrude, hold control, drag left, and this is going to give us that inset that we have like down here. It's more visible on some of these. So now for this one, this one actually we're going to leave blank over here. This one I'm going to create a window. So I'm going to go to extrude inner, drag it in with control, and then I'm going to adjust this to the exact window size that I want. So if I only want one window, I'm just going to move this over here. And now I'm going to right click again. Let's see how exactly. Let's do extrude inner again. Drag it down. So we're going to frame out the window. Now I'm going to hit U and L at the same time. That's going to give us our loop tool. UL. Click it, and then we're going to right click, go back to extrude, and we're going to bring this out by dragging right. Now I don't want to go past the outer frame and make it too big, so this is good. Now I'm going to hit this middle part, and I'm going to go to select, set selection, and that's basically going to tell me what that polygon is being selected, and I'm going to name it. Click glass. So when I go back to texture it and I have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of polygons in here, I can always go back in. Just select it by clicking on this button right here. So now I'm going to hit UL again to get my loop tool, get every side of the frame. So now I have all sides of it, and I'm going to do the set selection again. So select, set selection. Oh, sorry. Before you do that, make sure you click off of the old one, or it's going to mark that one too. So let me undo so I can get my selection back. Click off that again. You just don't want this highlighted. So now I'm going to set selection to get the selection tag. I'm going to name this frame, actually window frame. So now I can select this, get the window. I can select this and get the frame. So click off, click back on the cube. So now if you want to open this window, like I have on this image, some of these are open up here and up here. And you notice there's all different styles of windows that I've made. And this is totally up to your creativity, how you actually make these buildings. But this is just a similar way to how I did it. So I actually want to be able to open this window, right? So I'm going to make it a separate component. So I'm going to select this, select these two DAGs by holding shift and clicking, and then hit select polygons. Now I'm going to duplicate this cube, and then I'm going to invert my selection. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm just going to delete on press the actual delete key, not backspace, on your keyboard. Sorry. Reselect one of your polygons holding shift and clicking, and then hit delete. So what this did is it deleted this window from this box, right? So it's a separate, it's gone right now. But since we duplicated it, I'm gonna name this building 1. Now we have this one, right? And I'm gonna hide this. So now we wanna keep this window. So I'm gonna go select, invert. I'm gonna select one of these polygons again and hit delete. So now I have just the window. So you have everything right where you want it, but there's two separate components. So rename this window. And sorry, that was kind of hard to explain. And there's probably an easier way to do that, but that's just how I've done it. So now that we have this window selected, we want to adjust where it's going to be opening. So first, I'm going to hit the model button, hit my move tool, and then I'm going to select this, which enables axis editing. And I want this axis to be right on this side of the window. That way I can open it from that side. And it's sometimes easier to line this stuff up in one of the alternate views. So go in kind of close to get it right where you want. I want it on this line, or at least close. And then I want it on the corner. So that's pretty close. And now I want it in the middle. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Just eyeball it. It doesn't really matter how far in the middle it is. But so now that we've edited the axis, we're going to move this. And we moved it to that side because we want it to that part to pivot. So now when we rotate it, it's going to open and close. So we don't want to open it too far because the back of this where we've extruded isn't closed. So I'm going to kind of open it like this. Okay, and then next we're going to click on our building again, go back to polygon editing mode, right click this polygon, extrude inner, bring this in, and then I'm going to pull it up a little bit, and we're going to make that AC unit. So I'm going to extrude it out. This one, it can be a little larger than the frame. And this is how I make AC vents. It's really, really simple, but it is a little more time consuming. Right click again, extrude inner, drag it in just a little bit. And now we're gonna extrude this back. So we want this back as far as possible. Okay, so now we're going to, let's see, right click, and we're going to go to line cut. Actually hit K and L on your keyboard, right? So that's going to bring up our loop cut mode, and you're going to go into your loop cut settings. Hold on, let me reset this so you guys can see more. Okay, so KL, loop cutting, here's the settings. We're going to restrict cut to selections, so that way it'll only cut, well, it should. Let's see. Okay, it is. Okay, so you're going to restrict to selections and hit select cut. Now I'm going to go back into this mode. You can hit middle mouse button, or you can click up here. And we want to be directly in front of this, right? So we can see evenly how we're going to proportion this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it every 1, 2, 3 little boxes, if you can see those. Doesn't have to be exact. You're going to be the one modeling this. And this is the great thing about setting up scenes is that nothing really has to be perfect unless it's for production. You can just make this as easy as possible for yourself. If it's not going to be sent off into some other program to be textured like Substance Painter, then model it however you want to achieve the results you want. Nobody's going to be really looking at these models. So every 3, and it's about accurate. So now that we have this, we're going to click off that cutting tool. I'm going to select every other one by holding Shift and clicking. And I'm going to bring these out with extrude. Now I want to rotate these, and per object manipulation, I think is how this, no. Okay, so now that you've extruded it one at a time, hold Shift and drag 30 degrees with the rotation tool. That way they're all similar. Or whatever measure of degree you want. It's up to you. So now all those are out. Now I'm going to select every other one. Oops. I'll also bring these out with the extrusion about to that line. Then once again clicking and rotating that 30 degrees. So this is going to give you that imitation vent look. If you want, click on all these. I didn't bring them quite out far enough. Hit this and make sure you just drag out till they're all about the same. And that's pretty close. So now we've got this basic vent or AC system. And that goes for any of these that I made. So somewhere here, somewhere on the sides, there's little boxes in random places. I'll make that too. So this is all just really, really basic modeling and shape manipulation. So I'm gonna grab this one, extrude inner, and then I'm gonna make this smaller. Just gonna extrude it out a little bit. Just add some different detail and texture, and then you can keep adding these types of objects. Now, alternatively, you can model things separately and just get them close to it, but this is just how I've made this. One more, extrude inner, extrude and bring it in, give it even more detail. Okay, so now to texturing. So included in that asset pack, we'll have, there's textures that I've included, and we're gonna use some of those just to create this. So make a new Octane material, change this to glossy. Normally when you're making windows, you'd want a specular material because it is clear, but I have a lot of issues with noise when there's lights behind a window. So in order to account for that and just avoid it altogether, if you make a glossy material, go to your opacity or opacity, however it's said, you can turn this down quite a bit. I usually like to make my diffuse kind of a gray color so it's not as white. And then your index is where it's important. You want to turn this up so you're getting a little more reflection. And we're going to turn this up a little more. I'm going to drag this. Actually, I'm going to go here onto my window and get just the window. Drag this on. So now I'm going to open my Octane live viewer so you guys can see what's happening here. Actually, make this a little bigger. So now we have this nice reflection on our window that will easily let light out of it without creating a bunch of noise. So now we're gonna do this AC, and I should have set the selection on it. I didn't. So it's gonna take a minute to select this. I'm gonna click here, hit UL, grab this, grab the outside of this, and also the outside of this, and then I'm gonna hit my regular move selection tool here and just kind of drag over all these. And that's pretty much everything. I'm gonna go ahead and set this selection. So without any other ones set selection. Now this is something I didn't even do on my empty streets video. I learned this later. So it's gonna be AC. That way you can click. And these two aren't necessary anymore because they're not on there. So now we're going to create the AC material. So create shader, Octane material. And this one we're going to want a metallic. Then we're going to go to our roughness. And we're going to turn this up. It doesn't have to be turned up too much. This is all preference. I'm going to turn my specular down some. It's not quite as bright. And then even my, let's see. Actually, we're just going to leave it like that. So now we've got this nice kind of metallic reflection on here. And these are basic textures. You guys can do whatever you want. It's just for the sake of looking a little better than white. So now we're going to create another material, and we're going to do the main part of the building. And before that, I'm going to select this, get my loop tool, and I'm also going to apply that to there. That way we have that done. So on my new Octane material, I'm going to make a glossy node editor, and I'm going to include the texture for this in my asset pack. If you have one, you can use, go on to my last video. I'll show you how to make these pretty quick. So I'm going to drag this out. I can see everything. Go here. Go into my resources, and then this roughness texture. I'm also going to grab the normal. And I just held Control and dragged this to duplicate that, but I need to change the texture to the normal. So now close this, go into diffuse, make it a dark gray. Don't do what I just did. So I'm going to grab my building. With that selected still, I'm gonna click this one and hit select polygons. Actually, is that the right one? No. Select polygons. And this one I'm gonna just rename Nerdy for that little box. So now I've got both of these selected. I want to go up to select and invert this selection. That way we can just get the building, and it'll create a tag. We can rename it. So drag that texture on there, and let's see. I'm going to rename this to building base. Not sure what just happened there. So now we're going to have an issue with these stretched textures where I've made these polygon edits. So you can see right here, it's pretty stretched. I'm going to go back into this texture and change it to cubic. Should fix it. And also I'm going to go back into this node editor, and I'm going to duplicate this and make it a bump. That way we have a little bit more intense noise on here. So why did all my textures not work? Got that back. So now we need to do this frame. So we're going to double click the frame, create another new material, and we're just going to make something basic. So glossy, make it black or a little gray, just barely. Turn up the roughness, turn down the specular, and we're going to drag this on. Okay, so now we have our window, we have an AC vent, and we have the Nerney. So close that texture window. Now, as you can see, we've got a building kind of like we do on this. Yeah, these have more detail and more different windows, but that's what you have to do. You have to create variety. So back into this. I'm going to save this real quick. Tutorial. Okay, and now we just want to duplicate this. So after you have all of your buildings made, however many variety you want to go into MoGraph Cloner, and first off, I'm going to grab both of these and I'm going to hit Alt-G to group them into a null object. And we're going to drag this into our cloner, and I'm going to rename this building. So cloner, we need to adjust this so it lines up. So if I change up until they're stacked on top of each other. So adjust the Y. And say we want, 6 of them. Then we also want, actually, let's change this to grid. This gives us better control. So I'm going to adjust this, how far apart they are. And now we're going to make them how high we want them apart. Okay. As you can see, this is already bogging down my computer a little bit. So I'm not going to do too many of these buildings, but this will kind of give you a basic. So now that we have those, we're going to duplicate this. Hold shift and drag it out, however you want your street or alley. Rotate, and I should have been on that mode the whole time. Drag this, and I just noticed something. Turn it 180 degrees while holding shift. We actually, on these cloner tools, we only need one of the layered. So they're not super wide, and it's just unnecessary because you can't even see those. So I'm going to hold shift and drag this back in. And also these aren't lined up because my cloner's not in the middle of them, which is my fault. Let's see. There we go. So now they're lined up. And I'm going to create another one. Right click, and I'm going to turn this on 90 degrees. Now, I had a lot more of these buildings in my scene. Should be. So, obviously, this is going to be a very mini version. But you can already tell we're kind of getting that look that we had in the empty street scene on a very smaller, less detailed way. We had all of these buildings in the back, ones on the sides. So now we're going to do the road so we can kind of get a ground here. Now, if you notice, there's no doors. I also included the entrance doors, and those are included in this pack too. So there's a door there. There's the bottom layered ones. Let's go back into the tutorial. I'm going to create a you could do a plane. I'm going to do a cube for this, and I'm going to kind of drag it to the center of the scene. Drag it out. this way smaller. And kind of just bring it to the bottom. Or as close as possible. So now that we've done that, I'm going to first try to see by the top segments. Okay, don't do that. So now I'm going to make this editable, this cube. I'm going to hit C, click on the top surface, and now I'm going to go into this view. I'm going to get my knife, double click K, and I'm going to kind of draw where I want the curves to be. Holding Shift and dragging will give you a straight line. Now I'm going to escape, click again, hold Shift. Actually, I don't like that spot. Go up a little further. Shift, drag. Shift, drag. Escape again, and one more. Grab here, hold Shift, drag, and click. So now I have different sections for my curb. You can always click this building, move it back, and so it's all even. Click back on your cube, go to line editing, grab this and drag it. So now my roads are similar width. Now you can also click here. I believe you can do this. Right click. It's not letting me. So now that we have our roads, we're going to go back into our other view, our perspective view, and I'm going to grab these polygons, this one, this one, this one, holding Shift and clicking in polygon mode. Right click, extrude. I'm just going to extrude those up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to grab this one and extrude it down since we are at the street level we want to be. So now you can either leave these as hard angles or you can click them like this with the line editing mode. Right click, bevel. Kind of give them a slight curve, and you can do that a few times and get more of a curve, but that's all I'm going to do. Then I'm going to hit my loop tool again in line editing mode and grab this top loop, and that's going to select all of it all the way around. I'm going to go and do right click and bevel, get in real close here. Let me save this, and I'm going to grab that and just kind of curve it in a little bit. That way you have a slight curve on your curb. You can throw this into a subdivision surface. I'm not sure that that'll work very well though. No, it didn't work well. But you can do that. Oop. So now we have our curbs. So once again, you can probably just grab this texture onto it. We'll hold Control, drag it, and change this color. Something a little lighter. And drag this on there. Now we have our road. You can make this cubic as well. And when we get lights on there, you'll see it better. So now we have our street, our sidewalks, and our buildings. So now we need to talk about lighting. So a lot of my lighting in the scene Well, actually, in a lot of scenes, you want to use HDRIs to get the lighting, but since there's so much in this scene and it's all enclosed, you can get an HDRI feel from the lighting that you've created. So we have all these signs, the street lights, and then the window lights. So first off, let's get a object and a daylight. As you can see, you're getting the reflections on the windows and some of it on the AC units. I'm gonna click it, drag, get the rotation tool, and then drag it 90 degrees. So now it's dark, it's nighttime. Position my camera. So from here, I'm gonna make an object and a camera, and I'm gonna click on it. That way I can always go back to that view, unclick it, and you can move around. So whenever you click on it again, it'll take you back there. Just make sure you're not clicked on it when you're in the middle of it. When you're moving around, sometimes I duplicate it and then hide the duplicated one, just so if I do screw this one up by moving around, I can always go back with this one. So, okay. Okay, I was holding Control Shift and Z to undo my view. So now we have that. I'm going to turn the top one of these off so I don't see it. Okay, so now we need lights. So to start this off and get more lights, turn this off so I can see. I'm going to get objects, lights, and area lights. These are going to be Octane's area lights. They're built in. Now I'm going to make this smaller so it can fit in a window. And I'm going to place it behind one of these. And kind of bring it in front of the window. Make it a little taller. Oops, don't want to move that. Now it's behind the window. And see, look, I already screwed this up, so I'm going to delete that. Go into this one and duplicate it. And you can't really even see that light. But now if we turn the sun off, or the sun off, you do have some glowing coming across here. So turn this back off, get out of that mode. Then I'm gonna control and drag on that light. Bring one down. And I'm gonna turn these buildings off. So cloner. That way I can see better. And the second light, bring it down so it's in this window. And I'm going to change this one to a slightly different color. So clicking on the Octane light tag and changing the temperature to more of an off-white yellow color. So you just want to do this randomly throughout the scene. So I'm just going to control drag. Make that one blue. Make this one yellow. Control drag. And we're going to put this one up here with another off-white. So now if we go back into our view, oops, I closed my Octane window. Turn it to path tracing. I'm going to get even better realistic lighting. And I'm going to actually delete this. Duplicate the one we just edited. I don't know what I'm thinking. Delete that, what I just said. Don't do any of what I just said. Click these lights, hold shift and select them all, and then duplicate them. Turn your other building back on. Rotate these lights. Let's get that 180 degrees and drag them over into this building. As you can see, these ones are too far to the right. That didn't work anyways. So let me grab this light. Just one of these. Oh, it was that one. And we'll turn this building off. And we'll go in and adjust these lights. So I'm going to drag this one over here. Drag this one over. This one over. So now we have a few more. Turn this building back on. Turn the sun back off. And you have this kind of extra lighting. Now you can turn these up a little bit because they're not as obvious. I'm going to go in my settings. Go to my kernel, change this to 2. The GI clamp to get rid of some of the noise. I'm going to turn this down to like 2000. Okay, so now we need to put a light back here. So I'm going to duplicate one of these, bring it out, rotate it 90 degrees. That was 80. And drag it back into this building. Now to achieve the results that I had in this, it comes with a lot more fine tuning because obviously I didn't do this as quick. And I think I'm going to turn these lights back down a little bit. Some of them. So I'm just holding control and selecting random ones. And I'm going to turn the power down. So they're not quite as bright, including this one. So it's very bright. It's causing too much reflection right there. So now we have this basic street. Now you want to see kind of the darkness up here. So I'm actually going to grab my daylight and I'm going to rotate it just a bit on the red rotation. Kind of make it gray. Like that. Okay, so now we have all of this lighting. Let me turn this. Did I not drag one up here? Ah. So on these, I'm going to select all of them, hold Alt-G, change this to lights, change this to ground, delete this. And I'm going to select these items, drag them up just to keep it a little more organized. Okay. So now we can kind of see it coming together as a scene. So next I'm going to show you how I did the white lines on the road. So I just grabbed a cube. Get out of this mode again. Bring it in here. Make it really flat. Make kind of that shape, like the crossing lines. Make this one a little bigger. Create a new material, shader, Octane. Make this however you want. I'm just going to make it white. Add a little bit of gloss. Add that roughness texture again. Actually, let's add this one. We can use the bump map as a texture. Turn the specular down. And now I'm going to round the edges on this, so when it sticks out of the ground, it's not super hard surfaced. Let's just barely be above the ground. There we go. Now I'm going to grab another cloner, place this crossing line in it, click on the cloner, click Fix Cloner. Let's see where it has them. I'll do 10. So we want this to be 0. Not that one. However far you want them apart. I'm going to grab the actual cube and move it over. And make a few cloners. Oops. Let's see where we're at. That worked pretty well. So now, if we go back into here in this view, we can grab the cube and bring it a little closer. You can kind of see those crossing lines. They'll render out. So now we have the lines in the street. So let's see. So other than the lights and the bikes and trash can, all those details, we can make these lines that go across here that are like wires. So this part's really easy too. So I'm going to go into this view. I'm going to grab my spline tool. I'm just going to click back and forth across here, and I want to be kind of where the wall is. And if you're very particular on where you want this, like I'm going to be right now, I don't want it to be on the window, so I'm going to go between each building. Hit escape. Now that I have the first one, I'm going to get a circle, and I'm going to get a sweep. Drag the circle in and the spline. Change this circle down to like 1. We'll see how that looks. So you can see we already have a wire. I'm going to make it like 0.25 to make it even thinner. Then I'm going to create another shader. This can just be a black diffuse because it doesn't really stand out. I mean, if you want to go into a lot of detail with it, you can, but. And I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it 1 so you can see it better. So now we have wire 1. Change this back to, what was this cube? Oh, crossing lines. So now we can make more wires. And then I'm going to drag this down. Oops. I'm going to rotate it a bit. Even stretch it out. So now you have some random lines, and you can actually just make these back and forth like I did before, and then just keep making different ones and lower them and raise them. But I'm just going to do that for now. So now we're going to add some details. So first off, I'm going to go into my signs. Like I said, if you don't want to buy this and you want to just learn how to make it, watch my other tutorial, Illustrator to Cinema 4D, and you can create these signs really easily. So I'm going to grab just 3 of these signs, copy them, save this, paste them, and then we're going to move these all into the scene. So you can see how slow everything is loading. Bring these down. Grab the flexed edge sign, turn it 90 degrees. I'm gonna put this right here, not in the window though. Then we're gonna grab the other sign, turn it 90 degrees again. And this one, I'm just going to drag it straight back. Kind of put it up here. Place them randomly in your scene, wherever you want them. And then the bike shop sign. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees or 180 degrees. And slap it on a wall somewhere. So now we have a few signs, and you can see they're casting all kinds of more colors, which is why I said you don't really need an HDRI in this. I'm sure you can add one, it'll add even more colors and textures, but I'm going to adjust these emission values, because if you watch my last tutorial, emissions scale or don't scale. So if you make something smaller with an emission texture on it, it's going to be brighter than it should be. So you need to bring these values down a little bit to make them not quite as bright. Bring the red one down, or orange. Okay, so now we've got this basic setup with all these lights. Let's grab one of the other things, like the street lights. So I'm gonna grab this, bring it into my tutorial. This one's huge. I'm going to make this way smaller. Sometimes I use these figures in my scene to scale things. So I'll like scale him accordingly and then scale everything based on that. But this is just for the tutorial. We're gonna go ahead and bring this to the curb. that for some reason. Right click and drag another one over here, another one over here, kind of like between these two. Rotate it. And then we're going to adjust this one, make this brighter. Oops. That's way too bright. Now, as you can see, you have to have a lot of samples in this, or it's going to take forever. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to close these other windows. Maybe it'll not be as slow. Close. Yep. Oh, I guess I shouldn't have closed the bike one. I'm going to copy this real quick. Oh. Bring it into the scene. You can get any assets you want and just put these in here. The more details, the better the scene is going to look. And I just had these sitting on the street in random places. The more depth you can add to a scene, the better the composition looks. I'm going to say this about these light materials is earlier I told you that lights have a hard time coming through like glass and windows. I don't think, let me see. It's using this texture. So I'm actually going to just turn this texture off. Make it completely opaque. The lights are going to perform a little better. Yeah. So let me turn my post off real quick. Turn the emissions back down. Okay. So now I'm gonna open that bike project. Oh. Copy. This is getting really slow. So after I add this, I'm probably not going to add anything else to the scene. Make it a little bigger. I'll just rotate it a little bit. And this bike is editable, so if you open and expand it, and you click on the steering rack, you can actually just turn this whole piece and click back on the bike knoll. And this is not to scale at all. I'm going to get off this view for a minute. Click this button so I can just move it straight over. Get it to where it's kind of looking like it's on the pavement, and go back to my view. Okay, so that's basically how you set up the empty streets, and that's kind of how I did it. Obviously took a lot more time and really went into detail on the different objects, but to enhance this, I'm going to turn on the post options, turn down the glare power a little. When add blur to it. And then you can also go into the camera imager and bring up the exposure a little bit just to make the whole scene a little bit brighter. And this is going to take a while to truly render. If I up this to like 5,000. Yeah. So this is just taxing on my machine. It's old. But yeah, once again, I'll have the asset pack with the neon signs, the bike, the trash can, the buildings. That'll all be on my website before I post this video even. And it's going to be $15. If you download the free Flux to Edge sign, you can also get that from my site. And you make a post with it on Instagram and use that, and then tag me or even send me a message after you use it, I will give you a 15% off, or sorry, a 25% off coupon. It'll be good for anything on my store. There's only going to be 2 things on there, but if you want to get this asset pack for a little bit cheaper, you can do that. So once again, thanks for watching, and I appreciate it.